In today's video, I'm going to show you how to fill in the supplementary form Statutory Declaration in Lieu of Guarantor. Now, this form is used in conjunction with either an adult general application for a Canadian passport or a child general application for a Canadian passport. This form is primarily used when an applicant is within transit or they're in a country where they do not normally reside and where they are struggling to find a guarantor to complete their application form. A regular guarantor can be normally a Canadian passport holder in Canada, which can include friends and family, or if you are applying outside of Canada, it can also include a varied list of occupations that can sign. Now, those individuals that sign on an occupation basis, they are not judged on their citizenship or nationality, solely judged on their occupation that they practice within the country that you would reside in. So for example, if they're in the United Kingdom, they have to be practicing their occupation in the United Kingdom. They can't be someone that's, let's say, a medical doctor in Singapore, but they just happen to be in the United Kingdom whilst you're having your applications filled in. They have to actually practice within the country, the jurisdiction where you'll be actually be submitting your application. It's quite an exhaustive list of guarantors that you can find on an occupation basis, but they're primarily medical doctors, dentists, veterinarians, pharmacists, lawyers, bank signing officers, dean or head of universities or colleges, and judges. But you can look at the exhaustive list within the instructions of either the adult general application or the child general application form. So section 1, applicant's personal information. So here you're going to provide your details. So first of all, it's surname or otherwise your last name that you'll fill into this field. Then it's your given names. So it can be just your first name, or if you have a middle name, you'll also list that as well. Especially important if that's also on your passport, previous or desired new passport. Then you list here your date of birth, your place of birth, which is split into two sections, so the city where you were born and the country where you're born. And then there is a third section which is optional, depending on where you were born. If there's a province, for example, if you're born in Canada, there are provinces, or if there's states. If you're born in America, for example, you can list the state, but not every country would require this, so it depends on exactly where you were born. Now, the next stage here is if you're applying for a child, so if it's an individual under the age of 16 and you'll be filling in the child general application form alongside this form, then you're going to list the actual child whom the passport is going to be for. So you list their name here. So if you're applying on behalf of a child, you list their name there. And then further on down, you're going to provide a lot of information. Now, a lot of the information you're going to be asked here is actually very similar to the stuff that you're asked in the adult general application form. The main difference is it just goes back further in terms of years of how much information they want. In the adult general application form, only 2 years of your information history is required. However, here on the statutory declaration, they want the last 5 years of your history. So it's really important to calculate the history you're giving. You have to go back from 5 years to current times. That's really important. Failing to do this could really delay your application, or it could even end up being rejected if you're not present to rectify the issue on site. So here you're providing all addresses in the last 5 years, beginning with the most recent. So here, where the cursor is, that's where your most recent address will be, and as you go down, it goes further along lines. So let's say this would be year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, just for an example. But obviously, if it's just an address that you may have lived at continuously for 5 years or more, then obviously just one will suffice. So you can just do, I lived here from 2010 to 2015, or 2013 January to 2017 January. Moving on, again, another 5 years history request, this time for occupation or education background again. So again, beginning with the most recent. So remember, with each of these fields, you're going to work your way down chronologically. So the most recent here, and then the furthest back all the way down here. Again, if your situation hasn't changed in the past 5 years. So if you've been at the same workplace for 5 years, fantastic. Then you just fill in what the very top line, and you're done with it, because you'll be accounting for the 5 years from and to. And obviously you have an array of options here as well. So over that 5-year period, you might have had a job, and then somewhere along that line you were studying beforehand as well, or you might have been unemployed or a homemaker as well. So you can tick as many options that apply to you over that 5-year period, and I would strongly suggest giving as much detail as possible here, again, to stop any further delays happening with your application. And then rounding out page 1, you may sign here and date here as well. So you can actually absolutely complete this page 1 of this 2-page application form, so signing and dating. Moving on to section 2, references. Here the references play, as always, a really important part of your application. I highly advise that you read this section here before you start providing references, as there's a big clue as to who you need to provide. Provide the following information with respect to 2 persons, and here's the key point here, different from references provided on the passport application. So you're going to be providing 2 references already on your adult general application form. Those 2 people cannot simply be copied and pasted here. It has to be 2 other references that you provide on your application. So in total it will be 4 unique references, so 2 in the adult general application and then 2 on this supplementary statutory declaration in lieu of guarantor. Now if it was a child general application form you were submitting, it would only be 2 references, because there are no references to list in the main application for a child passport. The same rules apply for references here as well, so they have to be not related to you, and they have to have known you for 2 years or more. And note here at the end, they will be verified to confirm your identity. So in cases where you are lodging a statutory declaration in lieu of a guarantor, your references will be checked. They will be contacted to verify your identity. Notice that it doesn't say may anywhere, it's quite clearly will. So provide references that can be contacted. Obviously you want to get their permission first, just so out of courtesy they know your situation and they know that they are listed as references on your application form. And again, don't forget that you will just be listing your references information here. They don't actually fill these sections themselves, and there's nothing for them to sign, so you just provide the information for your reference so that they can be verified by a passport officer. So you'd provide their surname, the given name for the reference, your relationship with them. So for example, are you friends, are you neighbors, are you colleagues, so on and so forth. And then you provide an address for the reference, and the address can either be a home address or a business address as well for the reference. Key section here is you're going to provide at least 1 daytime telephone number where that reference can be contacted. Obviously be aware, if they're not working that day, don't provide a work number. It will just simply delay the process. So please provide a daytime telephone number. I'd suggest a cell number is always the best option, just because it's always handy. And then finally you round off the reference section. Has known me for a number of years, so you have to provide the approximate number of years that you've known the reference for, and bear in mind it has to have been for at least 2 years. References have been somewhat relaxed in terms of what a relative is defined as. It can now include aunts and uncles and nephews and nieces and cousins, as long as those individuals do not reside at the same address as you. So that can hopefully be a bit more helpful for you if you are struggling to provide references. Those individuals can actually act as references. But don't forget, just because the references cannot be related to you, that doesn't mean they can't be related to each other. So for example, if you have a friend, a good friend, and they have a brother or sister that obviously would have known you through association, that could be another reference as well. So think about it logically, and you might find yourself not struggling as much as you might have thought going into filling in this section. But references are such an important part. I can't stress enough how important they are to your application, so really pay close attention to this section. coming close to the end of the application, it's number 3, section 3, declaration of applicant. And this is a really important part of your application, and without it being completed, your application just will not move further. So there's a part of this section that you can fill in advance, but there will be a section where you'll be completing this section in front of an official, so not namely a lawyer, a commissioner of oaths, a notary public, or a consular officer at a Canadian embassy or Canadian High Commission, where you are if you are outside of Canada. So this section here, I am unable to find someone to act as a guarantor for the following reason. So there's a couple of reasons that you'd use. Most likely, if you're in transit and you're not in the country where you normally reside, you can just say, I do not reside in this country. Or you can say, I have not been in this country long enough to know a guarantor, because also don't forget the guarantor has to have known you for at least 2 years. And so you can just say, I've kind of exhausted the individuals that I know kind of qualify as guarantors, but for one reason or another they don't qualify, or in certain countries certain guarantors or potential guarantors may charge you to act as a guarantor for you, and that's something that cannot occur. A guarantor cannot be paid for their services. So for example, certain medical doctors or dentists have started to charge for certain extra services like signing forms, but in this occasion, if they charge you, they can't act as a guarantor. So that could be another reason as well, where you potentially had a guarantor, but if they were charging you, they automatically just disqualify themselves in acting as a guarantor for you on that occasion. And then you're going to provide as much ID as possible. So I have presented the following identification documents which bear my signature to the below official below. So best forms of ID are usually a driving license or passport of another nationality, maybe a health card, depending on where you normally reside and what type of ID is available to you. And then here, that's where you'll stop. So you'll stop at this declaration, have a good read of it, and then you're going to only be signing this when you're in front of the official. So if you're at a lawyer's office, great, you can then sign it. Or if you're at the embassy or high commission, you only sign it when you're in front of the consular official. They'll actually give you instructions to read and understand what you're about to sign. But clearly read the declaration. So I solemnly declare that the statements made in this declaration are true. The photos attached hereto, marked Exhibit A, are 2 identical, unaltered photos of myself or of the child. And then this is a section where you would sign, you'll date here, the date of the signature, and then the location of the signature, so the city you're in and the province, territory, or state, if it's applicable to the country you're in. The statutory declaration is then rounded off at section 4, declaration of official. It's actually not filled in by yourself, so be sure to leave this blank. This is not for you, the applicant, to fill in, but it is to be filled in by the official that is going to be witnessing your application form and countersigning it. So there are some detailed instructions. If you're going to a consular officer at the embassy or high commission, that they'll be well aware of how to complete this section. But if you're going to a lawyer or a notary public or a commissioner for oaths, just make sure that they clearly understand what their job is, what they have to do, not only on this form, but what they have to do to write and sign on the back of one of your photos. But I'll just give a quick breakdown. So the official must also certify, sign and date the back of one of the photos and write the following: this is Exhibit A in support of the applicant's statutory declaration. And if the applicant submits copies of his or her identity documents, the official must also sign and date both sides of the copies to indicate that the originals have been seen by the official. So that's the official's job to do, okay? And then the official will fill in the rest of this information about themselves. So there's for their names and what their job is, and just to clarify how they are qualified to be an official in this instance, and a date and telephone number where they may be contacted as well, obviously their business address. And obviously they'll be signing, ticking these boxes and signing, and then completing the declaration section. I really hope this video has been helpful to you, especially for most where individuals are in transit or having difficulties finding guarantors. This could be a potential boon for you. This application may seem like it's requesting quite a lot of information, but just taking a step back and looking at it, is actually just asking for a lot of the same information that you would provide in your main application form, but just a little bit more information, or just a couple more people to add as references. With this completed correctly, it will then allow your application to continue being processed and finalized. This can especially be helpful when you're out of the country and you don't know many people, and it can be quite a scary or intimidating position to be in. The statutory declaration can be extremely helpful. I would recommend one thing though: if you're able to, most probably go to the embassy or high commission or Canada in the country you may be in. If you're outside of Canada, their services are usually the cheapest, especially for an official signing. The declaration can be much more cheaper than going to a lawyer or notary, who can tend to charge a lot more money and may not always know what they're doing. With an official in an embassy or high commission, they will know this form like the back of their hand, and they'll be well equipped and well aware as to what they need to do on every occasion. So I highly stress doing that. Thanks again for watching this video. Again, if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with anyone else you think may benefit from it or may want to watch it. Please subscribe and comment as well. If you have any further queries that I may have not have covered in this video, please feel free to comment. I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. You can also comment with any other forms or applications that you're struggling with, and I'll try my very best to upload a video about them as soon as possible. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.